Fee kneels down, greeted by the silence of a stone, a silence broken when they begin speaking. I've brought you a dandelion. I'll leave it here for you. I don't expect you to make a wish on it. I just need you to humor me for one more story. Death, really, what does it mean to die? I'm finding that harder to answer as I keep breathing. It's during funerals we celebrate the living, but it's the dead that affect us. The first death that got to me was my grandmother. A funeral happened when I had just turned old enough to legally be accepting those free drinks I still turned down regardless. When there was a break in her service, I lingered outside, wanting the soft breeze to part the clouds, left alone to contemplate that I lost my grandmother, but personally, I lost an enthusiastic intellect. She was of a different class of tax, this fact foiled by her endless compassion. A woman who could converse about any subject of discussion at length, discussions I had connected with during our at least monthly lunches, where despite my best effort, food could never be my treat. That is the family member I was mourning. Peace in nature put on pause as I was joined outside by two of my cousins, both under 10, maybe 5 and 8, it truly doesn't matter. The facts were such that they could not resist the pull of the church's playground. I oversaw their partially dangerous antics while wondering, who is it that they lost? She was our grandmother? But even still, the impact must vary. The only difference between our perspectives is time. Time is inarguably monolithic. We cannot run from it. We cannot conquer it, so instead we witness it, and it changes us. I'm sorry. I'm used to our call and response. That isn't what I have come here to say. I met someone. Do you remember that fast food job I told you about? The one I started fresh out of high school? That's where we first met. They were once a paying customer. I had no motivation to charge someone so kind. Not much led from here, but I needed that smile to boost me up for my entire closing shifts. I learned the face's name was Jaden. The job of great coworkers, caring managers, for both the shifts and scheduling, but with questionable ownership. I would have stuck around a good bit longer if they didn't replace the store manager with a clueless kid that was replacing the manager in the larger role the last manager had already been unofficially offered. The kid hired all because he married into the owner's family. No idea of promotion from within. Just out of left field, hired this dude who's less qualified than a high school dropout with many extended bathroom trips. The inexperience strained every employee with weeks and weeks of wrong inventory, bouncing between understaffed and overstaffed because the prior system just had to go to the dumpster completely. When I was done working, I was sorry to my coworkers, but personally, I was going to miss my Jaden. They were still pretty much a stranger. I left frustrated, but I had some classes lined up after exploring trade certification, a straight entry to the labor force. I was drawn to the hands-on nature of work. I still want that kind of reward from a career, but I'd spent so much effort studying back in high school, it'd feel wasteful not to capitalize on it. Even still, I could not commit to school without a degree needed for employment. No offense to comms majors, but definitely some offense. This constant reminder to focus ourselves leaves our choices on rails for the few major decisions we can afford to make. The need for money shaped my employment interests. Money shapes all our interests. Is that greedy? We as people tend to say no, preferring to say something in defiance of it's just smart planning. Money was the driving force for my return to academics and where I ended up moving to. I needed a roommate, and the timing worked out best with an old school friend and their fiance. Engaged with no wedding date, which is kind of a weird choice to me, but personally, I had not lived with people who truly loved each other since my parents were still together. That part made for a nice change of pace, even as it gave me a nice and traffic-y commute to complain about. People, myself included, want simple problems, the kind of problems that make for small talk on a first date. My friends dragged me out to a bar to hang out at some sort of event happening that night. I saw a familiar face running tables, and my focus for the night shifted. That night turned into my first date with Jaden. It wasn't much more than exchanging numbers and organizing an intentional outing about half a week later. I learned that they were working mostly night shifts with this restaurant. The bar job was new to them. Yet they seemed rather down, maybe a hint emotionally numb, shoulders demanding to be idly slumped. They did a good job presenting a strong face to the customers. Their turmoil probably impossible to notice without excessive staring, which, full disclosure, I was. At least for most of the 20 minutes left on their shift, before wandering around on that first date. I did not know what I was looking for. In the back of my mind, there was probably a good idea of what. When it comes to meaningful connection, I struggle in this negotiation with knowing how much I bring to the table. It was weird hanging out with someone that I had dozens of great conversations with over the past months. Yes, plural S. In this kind of planned manner, looking back on it, the feeling was uncertainty. Not because the plan was to meet up a while before a crappy movie and wing it from there. No, it was the little things. Why did this night take so long to happen? How was this played out in their head? There's one part of this conversation from that evening that really stuck with me. We were wandering around stores at the strip mall, just walking and talking. I was looking at the shelves only to set up bits and jokes. I guess my deflection off real topics was noticed. We were in the back of Petco, looking at the rodents, and Jaden says some compliment unprompted for playing off my very dumb joke, something like rodents are pets to teach middle schoolers about death, where verbatim, word for word, they said, V, look, life, death, and taxes. It is a satire about the inevitability of money, or what have you. But when I put my budget together, it's not death and it's not taxes that gets the laugh out of this phrase. It's the cost of life without anything about it being funny. I can tell you're covering up something sad. I don't need to know what, but I need you to know whether we become friends or what. My face hurts from all the laughing we've been doing. If you could use a bit of a mental distraction, the movie should have just started. Maybe that monologue wasn't word for word, but at least a faithful retelling. That night's a testament to the power of words and the impact they carry. Speech may be free, but the consequences do remain. That ignores the plain fact that speech can be bought, whether it's actors on film, anchors on news, or plain internet bots. America, land where everything is for sale. Any problem can be resolved through money or created through spending. Our greed so present, it ruins personal integrity. For piles of money that can be turned into anything instead of a product or thought to have, it's focus on the sale to buy what is wanted with these convincing dollars. Life is not about maximizing profits, but I understand if your purpose comes from a profit. To be even more granular to me, purpose is found in personal connection, in the skill growth. That night to Jaden led with several more. I could already tell their roots had been sowed, connected in my brain. Our relationship started to sprout. How long must we, and selfishly I, hold out to see my effort and dedication pay out? I think I know, but let me be in bliss wrapped in the arms of ignorance. Imagery reminiscent of the moment where I had nothing to offer but my arms. I was at dinner, Jaden's apartment, led in by a shaky voice through an unlocked door, greeted by a teary-eyed Jaden. Retracted into their couch, I asked if we should reschedule. I cannot capture in words the look that question put upon their face. Before it paused and said, "Please stay." So plopped down beside them, they asked a question that would be the backdrop for our next 2 days of discussion. What makes something a waste of money? I am still confident I do not have a quote correct answer. The first answer I am used to hearing is if you want to spend it, it cannot be a waste. This advice doesn't hold up to scrutiny, but I didn't know what else to say. It should have been obvious that this was not an issue of want, but an inability to afford a need. That became clear as we sat in close silence. Ultimately breaking the quiet to eat the caringly crafted cold dinner that was hot the exact moment of my arrival. Words were still not filling the room. My curiosity was killing me. My compassion for my companion left to contain and restrain my depraved greed for knowledge. I can see how someone in a similar situation could convince themselves that probing for answers isn't greedy, it's needed to aid and help. This is a volatile moment. To get told more than willingly shared is exploitative, self-serving. By all accounts, taking such actions would be a sin of greed. Once our plates stopped getting lighter, a conversation began. It was soft, it was quaint. Hours would pass before vulnerability reemerged. I got a vision of why they were hurting. They let a lie unravel. It was not night shifts keeping them busy, but the sight of a hospital bed holding their ailing daughter. The kid they were left to parent alone long before leukemia took Jaden's daughter out of the classroom. Jaden's parents had her on that night. Half-formed jokes were the only way Jaden was holding composure. Jaden's shaken voice saying grandparents are expected to pamper their grandbabies, so she deserves to feel normal and pampered with how well she's fighting. The cancer was news to me, but the diagnosis wasn't the source of gloom that hovered over our evening. There was a second shoe that had dropped. I needed to be content with not knowing yet what that was. The morning after, I was the one seeking guidance on a set of class finals, these presentation discussions, efforts that have only grown since that moment. But in that moment, they were interests, just assignments. I needed a simple genius to bounce my thoughts off of. I wanted the simpler perspective that was so clear when I was working for money. Concepts muddied through my research, our language not just you and I, but as a whole. Hell, when I set the stage for Jaden, I opened with belittled fact that if this were a high school project, we commit tax fraud jokes that scatter the internet. Would be project done and dusted. In one sentence for my hard-earned C, can I go home? We sure as shit ain't in high school anymore. So humor me. I'm sure this next bit is less ranty than it was in the moment. This is a moment I want back. With the timing of it all, knowing everything I know now. But Jaden's input has meant more to me than I could find words for. Anyways, where was I? A moment. Jaden, humor me here. The issue goes so much deeper than that, with the inevitability of money as this type of universal singularity. We can see this in phrases. The most obvious are the gambling metaphors in everyday life, like hedge your bets for lowering risks, and the arguably co-opted all-in. Even money for ideas is represented this way, offering your 2 cents, or buying, one could say bribing, someone to speak with only a penny for your thoughts. We see money as this concept of clarity, something's value will do as its complete summary. Just look at the bottom line. People always need to know, how much did it cost? And we brag about our monotony with that general personal artifact was a good investment. Indomitably inviting harassment of it's just not worth it. It's laughable, the language of money, because there is no promotion upon hearing you're a valuable asset to this company. This perspective of money as the purpose of actions is reinforced in our words before seeing this perspective in action at the core of our barely functioning, grown-up world. I want to argue that money is a sin, but I seem as you need money just to live. Half of our nation is paycheck to paycheck. The financial peak of that half is grinding to see $45,000 by the end of the year. That gets spent to the last dime to keep themselves and their family breathing. The need of us workers hides the greed America inspires, because wanting to grow and earn more than nothing is not proof of our greed. Yet money is not a plant. It is the manner in which we are exploited, addicted to the fantasy of riches as we work, competing with each other. A company can pay $2.5 billion in penalties, which could be argued is not more than a bribe, and they still net a profit of $17.5 billion in 3 months. That's good for $44,106.06 in annual profit per each individual full-time employee. Dedicated workers who won't sniff a dime of that profit, as the individual business owner see more value hoarding their wealth to bribe journalists and any governing official. That works out to a $40,000 wage to every employee. And they'd still net an annual profit of $6 billion US dollars. If an individual made $600,000 a year without spending a dime, it would take 10,000 years of labor to equal that lowered mark of annual profit. That about summarizes my peak and spark of frustration. Then I could parse deeper. With that level of wealth is all luck, ignorance, and denial. Jaden barely saw issue with that conclusion and my crass focus on luck, but I remember saying a sapling will grow taller in a forest than a square in a sidewalk. Both might not grow at all. Money is a lot the same. My hard-fought metaphor earned me only a shrug, and I used the same unhealthy money metaphor rhetoric I had just complained about not even moments prior. The issue with greed is the victim and the people affected are everything else, including the mirror. If we cannot blame and dislike people chasing dollars beyond need, then we are failing as people. Anyone who sells out for any reason other than to feed their starving children, these decisions made solely for dollars. The individual person will be hated by me until the day that they die in their peace before ending up in their well-earned, cold, desolate hell, as the camel still cannot fit through the eye of a needle. This conversation was about as one-sided a conversation me and Jaden ever had, even compared to the discussions triggered from that first rant in the following months. They were engaged not because of the subject, but because I was impassioned through its discussion. That is to say, Jaden would press me the moment I leveled claims without reason, finding questions, playing both devil and angel on my shoulder. I think I'm done sharing Jaden with you as a story. Let me selfishly restate my opinions of Jaden, a person who defines and warps my manner of existence. Jaden was a parent to a bright, caring young daughter. She fought cancer away, tooth and nail. I do not know how I never saw her genuine smile fall into a frown. I would reckon it's probably the company I shared. It was always at least me, her, and Jaden in a room. I doubt I was the main reason for her laughter, which means I do know, or at least a confident guess, it was Jaden's infectious compassion that helped her smile until her tragic last breath. How do you help someone through the loss of their daughter with the subtext she was on her way to becoming our daughter? What is worse is leukemia is now something children are likely to survive, 90% chance of survival. Not that that's any comfort to me or to Jaden. With Jaden regardless left saddled with $112,000 in debts. Jaden was holding it together given the situation at hand. How is it fair that this is how they have to suffer? 2 jobs and charity work while being the light of life in at least 2 people's lives. The torment Jaden had to persist did not end there. The medical debt was still screaming to be paid, was a nagging reminder, as much as it pains me to say. The shift in my passionate work from research to action probably strained them as well. Anything adding to the amount of whelm was not going to help. Now I am left fighting my battles, fanning a movement aggressively scheduled, peaceful protest drowning in logistics of fueling these picket lines. I am overwhelmed, and I came here for peace to tell you about Jaden, the light of my life. No, I need to be honest. I should speak directly to Jaden, to face the truth of my life. I know I am selfish, so Jaden, I am sorry in advance for how rude this could be. Jaden, we would have loved your support for the movement, marching for unions, activism, that the economics aid can be more than handouts. A free class on how to fish empowers the people. That does not mean we all need to go fishing. But back to where I was trying to lead you. Jaden would have been perfect to stand headstrong against the buying of political will. We, the people, could have used your voice. I know it's not fair. I miss your voice. And yes, of course, I blame myself for not seeing this outcome, hating myself for your struggle, blurring my foresight, and allowing my lack of preventative action. I held on to nothing but faith we would see tomorrow together. But patiently waiting for time to heal us, I had the slack in my brain to stretch myself thin to support you. Beyond the call to action, my faith defended my inaction, which leads to your first touch of those medical opioids, to be your last, leaving me here alone, kneeling at your grave. Jaden, please know I am sorry. I needed more closure than saying, God rest your soul. I need to make peace with my demons. That does include having to live my life without you. I wanted peace with my past and our collection of yesterdays. Jaden, for one final time, let me share with you what are my hopes for today than tomorrow. Okay. I am trying to get the attention to help our ailing nation. The actions are simple. The challenge is the exclusion to help of a nation's economic track. The track that is rife with potholes, with figmented solutions. As corporate interests levied bribes to our leaders to go on vacation, the power of America is in the palm of the people. With our right to protest and our votes, the concept of greed is infectious. It engulfs us as we, the people, become corporate products. How do you get it written in law that wealth needs to be taxed when the Supreme Court's decision on Citizens United states precedents for politicians to accept bribes without disclosing who is paying, every politician heaping millions of fucking dollars. Our elected public servants fight with each other to afford their seventh mansion as their people struggle to make rent, as we keep accruing debt, as each elected official chases dollars, forgetting their role as a servant to the people. The greed we are forced to accept as individuals is the same greed found padding the shoes of our bosses, leading the way as they, a person as well, take to exploiting our breath for their profiting labor. So for you, Jaden, I will bat for the betterment of us. I will lay a foundation for those of whom I disagree. I will pave a sturdy foundation, but it is not I. It is we the people of the United States of America, who will take back the power of we the laborers and you the individual. The tolerance of greed has been a blight on the sanctity of morals and our health. My actions will ever be in memory of you, despite your ability to remember what comes from tomorrow. I am sorry. It took me too long to realize society is what we make it, shaped by the actions of everyday people. We do not need titles, only dedication to shape the future without greed, enabling us to live free and prosper in our capitalist nation.